Taking a quick look at these new power stations from UGreen, they've actually got two of these, the 1200 and the 600. And if you're not familiar with UGreen, they're quite well known kind of in the industry for making these USB chargers. And a lot of them they actually use, as this one mentions here, the GaN technology, which is basically just gallium nitride inside that, basically it just increases the efficiency of these things. Now, it's kind of actually really disappointing that there's no mention of this on the listing for these power stations. So, like one of the things that they're kind of, most well known for is these kind of quick charge, super efficient USB chargers, and there's no mention of using that kind of GaN technology on these power stations. So that's actually super disappointing. But at least we do get this high quality design that UGreen is known for, again, just like across the board. It's just the design, the execution of the design. It's really, when you look at this thing a little bit closer, it's the texture and the finish that really makes this thing look like a high quality product. And I really like that they've made it like a little bit of a rugged design as well. You can see here they've kind of brought just a nice little design detail. They've kind of brought the little silicone feet that this thing sits on just up a little bit onto the product. And they actually call this thing an anti-collision design, which, maybe might be a little bit of a translation thing. But yeah, it's not only a very nice product design, it does look like it can take a little bit of abuse as well. Now, just a few final thoughts on the design before we jump into all the specs. And I'm going to get to the specs here real quick. But, basically one thing that really surprised me is that they've actually decided to go with this Jackery style handle, fixed handle right on top, right? Which is a little weird. I think everybody's pretty much abandoned this design. And now one thing that I'm kind of like really confused about, it kind of shows like some conflicting images here, is basically, as I showed in the this thing here, a lot of these adapters that they use this really nice kind of, I'm not a biggest fan of like purple in general, but it actually looks really nice. Just a little bit of touch of purple there in contrast to kind of the black and gray that they use. And so on this image here, you can see they actually don't have that purple. Actually, let me just zoom in here. They don't have that purple on the USB-A ports there. And so this is just something that, I don't know what's going on, because in some of the videos I've seen online, even some of the promotional videos they have on here, as you see, they actually do have purple. So I don't know if they changed it for the American version. Maybe they're too afraid people weren't going to like purple. But still, it's kind of weird because, all their USB chargers that they sell here have the purple. So I would have liked to just seen that because, again, it's just, you got to have confidence in your brand if that's the kind of the design that you're going with. And I think, again, the purple does add like a nice touch to it. Now, what's kind of really disappointing with that, though, is that, if they're doing the purple accents, why didn't they do purple on that little energy meter there as well? So I thought, this is just crazy. Like why have, purple USB ports, little purple accents there, and then have just the standard blue that, it seems like everybody uses on the display? Why do that? So I thought, let's just throw this thing right into Photoshop. And so there you go. I've actually just, updated that. I really wish they would have just gone all purple there, right? You got the USB ports and then the display as well to match. Now, as I mentioned, there's actually two of these PowerRoams, the 1200 and the 600. I'm basically going to be focusing on the 1200 for the most part in these videos. The design is almost identical between the two. I'll kind of touch on the differences specs-wise on the 600 at the very end of this video. But yeah, for the 1200, we get 1,024 watt hours and a 1200 watt inverter. So that's, pretty decent mid-size specs. And of course we are getting a LFP battery. And one thing to note that's actually very interesting here is they're actually mentioning BYD cooperation. So basically the batteries are probably coming from BYD. And if you haven't heard of BYD, they're basically, I would say, probably the #1 EV electric vehicle brand in China. Now in China, if you're not aware, like electric cars are like taking off like crazy, and they're doing a lot of innovative stuff. Like they're pretty much at the top of this as far as innovation with batteries and stuff like that. And they are using these, like, as you can see, these are like really big cells. In fact, I think this might be the same cells that Ecoflow is using on the Delta 2, because it's basically rated at the same exact capacity, and the cells, they look kind of similar in size as well. And this unit is actually very, very light as well. They only mention it's something like 25 pounds. So again, that's real similar weight to the Delta 2. Now the Delta 2 does weigh about a pound more, but it does have a bigger inverter. Now, of course, with that 1200 watt inverter, you are going to be a little limited. You know, you're going to have to kind of be picky about the kind of appliances you use. But what's interesting, they do have this kind of, you know, what they're calling U turbo. All these brands seem to have some kind of funny name for this feature where basically it'll drop the voltage so that you can power, you know, devices that would typically use like a lot of power. Basically anything that's got like a resistive heater will be okay, but nothing that's actually like, you know, controlled by electronics and stuff like that. And at least they do kind of provide this note here at the bottom. But yeah, so some high powered appliances under 2500 are not suitable with this function. And then we do get a UPS as well. So they're saying within 20 milliseconds. So that's, yeah, I kind of like to see 10 or 15 milliseconds, but you know, 20 milliseconds is pretty decent for trying to, you know, keep your computer on and stuff like that. And of course, since it has a UPS, you know, it doesn't have any kind of power brick. Just uses a standard AC cord to power this thing, to charge it up. And they do kind of have this, you know, fast charging, kind of the typical specs. Now we do get an app and, you know, we get Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so that's just nice to see both of those options. And they have some nice features in this app, something that I haven't really seen before, including this child safety lock. So, you know, basically you can just be using this thing and there's no way you're going to be able to change any of the settings or the outputs on it just by touching the unit, right? You'd have to go into this app and kind of do the changes through there. And now lastly, the solar charging. So basically on the 1200 unit here, the max is 400 watts, which is, you know, a decent spec. I would have liked to seen, you know, 500 or 600 watts, but 400 watts is definitely decent. And it is up to 48 volts, so you can do panels in series. And I think it's 15 amps as well. So you're definitely going to be able to get those 400 watts. Now for the 600, unit, basically it's the solar is a lot less. So 200 watt max on the 600 and only up to 28 volts. So this is actually not too surprising. For, you know, if you want to get the smaller unit, you know, you're going to be able to do less solar. And since we're talking about the 600, just to kind of do like a quick recap on the differences, basically, you know, 680 watt hours. And the thing is, the inverter is only actually 600 watts. But one thing to note is that this unit actually, you know, almost 20 pounds there, it's not that much smaller than the 1200. Like not only the weight, but as you see here, the size as well. So yeah, it's just a quick overview of these new UGreen PowerRoams. Hopefully you just kind of found this video helpful or interesting. And yeah, thanks for watching.